You believe you know this story. A Spartan warrior bathed in the ash of his own family wages a war against the heavens. You have felt his rage, you have guided his blades, you have watched him tear down the marble halls of Olympus, god by god. But what if the rage you witnessed was a flickering candle against an eternal starless night? The game shows you a man who killed his gods. The myths, however, tell of a cosmos where the gods cannot truly be killed. They are not beings of flesh and blood to be broken. They are the laws of reality itself. And the true horror is not in fighting them, but in the certainty of what happens when you win. Let us pull back the veil. Let us look past the blockbuster action and peer into the ancient, terrifying truths the story of Kratos chose to forget. These are the 5 fundamental laws of the Greek cosmos that the god of war never truly understood. And the first is the most damning of all. Chapter 1. The Weight of Miasma, a stain that cannot be washed away. In the game, the murder of Kratos' wife and child is a psychological trauma. It is a memory that haunts him, a ghost he must learn to live with. It is the fuel for his vengeance. But in the world of the ancient Greeks, it was so much more than that. It was a disease, a spiritual poison. They had a word for it: miasma. Imagine you are standing in a field after a battle. The air is thick with the copper tang of blood. That feeling, that heavy, unclean presence, is a pale shadow of miasma. It was the metaphysical stain left by a crime that violated the natural order: murder, sacrilege, and above all, the spilling of kindred blood. This wasn't a feeling you could overcome with therapy or time. It was a literal pollution of the soul that clung to you, that infected the very ground you walked on. It soured the wine, it sickened the livestock, it cursed the crops. The Furies, the Erinyes, were not just metaphors for guilt. They were cosmic antibodies, drawn to the stain of miasma as hounds to a scent, to pursue the offender with relentless, maddening torment until the debt was paid. The game shows Kratos washing the blood from his blades, but the myths tell us you can never wash the miasma from your hands. There were rituals, yes, purifications for accidental killings, but for a man who murdered his own family, then slaughtered his way through an entire pantheon, his crime would not just be his own, it would be a plague upon the entire world. The barren landscapes, the endless floods, the sun blotted from the sky. In the game, this is the consequence of killing the gods. In the myths, it would have been the consequence of Kratos' very first, unforgivable act. He wasn't fighting for vengeance, he was a walking pestilence. The pact was broken, the family was slain, and with it, a man was no longer just a man, he was a wound in the world. Chapter 2. The Iron Law of Xenia, the sin of the guest. There are laws written on stone, and then there are laws woven into the soul of creation. In ancient Greece, the most sacred of these was Xenia, the guest right. It dictated that you must offer shelter to a traveler, food to the hungry, and protection to any who came under your roof. And in turn, a guest must honor their host, never bringing them harm or betrayal. This wasn't just good manners. It was the personal law of Zeus himself, the king of the gods. To violate Xenia was to personally offend him. Think of the Trojan War, a decade of slaughter, a city turned to ash. And why? Because a prince named Paris was a guest in the house of King Menelaus, and he betrayed that trust by stealing away his host's wife, Helen. The war that followed wasn't just a squabble between mortals, it was the activation of a divine law. It was Zeus's retribution, moving armies and heroes like pieces on a game board to punish a single profound violation. Now think of Kratos. He storms into the halls of the gods. He demands their power. He betrays their trust. He murders them in their own homes. He is the ultimate bad guest. In the game, this makes him a rebel, a defiant hero. In the logic of the myths, it makes him the single most wanted criminal in the cosmos. His every act of intrusion, every betrayal, would be a direct insult to the king of the gods, reaffirming his guilt again and again. The gods' fury wouldn't be the wounded pride of tyrants. It would be the cold, impersonal execution of a fundamental cosmic sentence. How could they have been so blind? Kratos thought he was fighting against their power, when in truth, he was feeding it with every sacred law he broke. Chapter 3. The true nature of the gods. Embodiments, not boss fights. You've seen him do it. You've seen Kratos drive his blades into the chest of Poseidon, the god of the sea. You've seen him rip the head from the shoulders of Helios, the god of the sun. In the game, they are powerful beings, yes, but they are finite. They can be beaten. They can be killed. This is the great mortal misunderstanding. The Greek gods were not simply superpowered people living on a mountain. They were their domains. Poseidon did not control the sea. He was the crushing depth, the unpredictable rage of the storm, the life-giving salt on the air. Helios was not a man who drove the sun. He was the searing heat, the blinding light, the dawn that holds back the darkness. To kill them was not to kill a person. It was to murder a fundamental concept. The game shows us the result. When Poseidon dies, the seas rise in a catastrophic flood. When Helios dies, the sun vanishes. This is a literal interpretation, but the mythical truth is far more terrifying. What does it mean to kill the sea? Does water cease to exist? Or does it lose its nature? Does it become a formless, chaotic force with no master, no purpose? When you kill the sun, do you just lose the light? Or do you kill the very idea of warmth, of growth, of time itself? Kratos believed he was climbing a ladder of power, taking down enemies one by one. But the myths would argue he was pulling the threads from the tapestry of reality itself. His war was not against a family of kings. It was a war against physics, a war against reason, a war against the very grammar of existence. And in that war, victory and annihilation are the same thing. Chapter 4. The Cruelty of Prophecy, the Illusion of Choice. I am not the monster you believe me to be, Kratos roars at the fates. He believes he can change his destiny. He believes that with enough will, enough strength, he can unwrite the words of prophecy. He is the master of his own fate. This is hubris. This is the tragic flaw that brought down every great hero of Greek myth. Because in their world, prophecy is not a warning, it is a trap. Consider Oedipus. A prophecy foretold he would kill his father and marry his mother. So his father, the king, orders him to be killed as an infant. But he is saved. He is raised in a foreign land, hearing the same prophecy and believing the couple who raised him are his real parents. He flees to avoid his fate. And on the road he quarrels with and kills a stranger. The stranger, of course, was his true father. He continues on, solves the riddle of the Sphinx, and is made king of the city, where he marries the widowed queen, his mother. Every single action he took to escape the prophecy was the very action that bound him tighter to it. The struggle was the fulfillment. Kratos hears a prophecy that a marked warrior will destroy Olympus. Zeus, fearing this warrior is Kratos' brother Deimos, has him captured. This act of paranoia and fear is what sets Kratos on his path of rage. Later, Kratos is told he will be the one to destroy the gods. He takes this as a mission, a destiny to be achieved. But what if it was a curse? What if his rage-fueled quest to fulfill that prophecy was, in itself, the true tragedy? In the logic of the myths, A hero does not break his chains. He simply tightens them until they strangle him. Kratos' greatest defiance would have been the final turn of the key in his own fated lock. The future was not a mountain to be conquered, it was a labyrinth, and every step he took he could hear the monster's breathing get closer, and it was his own. Chapter 5. The Myth of Redemption, a mortal concept. In the end, in the snows of the north, the story becomes one of redemption. Kratos seeks to be better, to control his rage, to atone for his past and become a father, not just a warrior. It is a powerful human story, and it is a story the Greek gods would have never understood. The concept of redemption, of being forgiven for your sins and becoming a new person, is a promise from a different faith, from a different world. The world of the Greeks was not a world of forgiveness, it was a world of consequences. Look to the great sinners of their myths. Sisyphus, who cheated death, was not given a chance to learn his lesson. He was condemned to push a boulder up a hill for eternity. Tantalus, who betrayed the gods' trust, was not sent to a spiritual rehab. He was cursed to stand in a pool of water he could never drink, beneath a fruit tree he could never reach, for eternity. Prometheus, who gave fire to humanity, was chained to a rock where an eagle would eat his liver every single day, for eternity. There was no parole board on Olympus. There was no divine pardon waiting for those who said they were sorry. Actions had consequences, and those consequences were as immutable as stone. For a crime like Kratos's, the murder of family, the destruction of the sacred, the act of deicide, the myths offer no path to being better. They offer only the abyss. His punishment would not have been a battle to be won. It would have been a state of being, as eternal and unchanging as the stars. The greatest thing God of War got wrong wasn't the strength of the gods, but their memory. They never ever forgot. So what is the truth we are left with? The game gives us a story about a man who fought the system and won. It is a power fantasy. The myths give us a story about a man who shattered the laws of the cosmos and, in doing so, shattered himself and his world. It is a cautionary tale. It warns us that some actions leave a stain that cannot be cleansed, that some debts can never be repaid, and that true divine power is not a fist you can fight, but an ancient, unbreakable law you can only foolishly break yourself against. Kratos' true tragedy was never that the gods were his enemies. It was that he failed to understand that they were the rules. And in a game against the gods, there is no winning. There is only the price you pay for playing.